Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon. One of Kevin Costner's first roles came in the most terrifying nuclear war movie ever made. These days, Kevin Costner is recognized as a notable film and television star, yet some of his earliest roles have mostly been forgotten, including his part in the 1983 apocalypse movie, Testament. Costner's career began in the early 1980s, but the actor didn't really take off until 1987, when he took on the role of Elliot Ness in The Untouchables. He continued starring in big-name movies, and soon enough, directed his first feature film, Dances with Wolves, which became a blockbuster. Since then, Costner has continued making and leading westerns, action films, and dramas. Today, Costner's name on a cast list could be enough to lure certain audiences into watching a project. For example, Taylor Sheridan's Yellowstone definitely benefited from having such an important Western actor in its ranks in 2018, leading to 5 successful seasons. Similarly, his exit definitely caused issues for the series as well. However, back in the 1980s, Costner hadn't yet made a name for himself, and movies like Testament show the actor proving himself, not only to the filmmakers and the audience. Costner's 7th ever movie role was in the 1983 film, Testament. The movie, based on a short story called The Last Testament by Carol Ammon, is about a small California suburb that is thrown into chaos when a nuclear disaster hits and slowly demolishes society. It centers on the Westerly family, in particular, and their struggle for normalcy. In the film, Costner plays Phil Pitkin, a local neighborhood man who spends time with the Westerlys right after the attack. Testament and Costner's role in it have definitely been forgotten as time has gone on, but both deserve to be re-examined in the modern day. Though Costner doesn't play an especially big role, his performance in Testament is a reminder that he was once a young actor just starting out, looking for his niche. Furthermore, Testament should get a resurgence in popularity because of its gripping story, which has a certified fresh 89% on Rotten Tomatoes. Another reason for reviving Testament is that it is still prevalent. Although fears of nuclear war aren't quite as strong today as they were in the 1980s, the possibility of an apocalypse is still fresh in audiences' minds. Dystopia has long been a genre where viewers find comfort and also realism. In this way, Testament could be a great watch for those who are craving this kind of dark and thrilling story that imagines what our worst fears would actually look like. One great way to bring Testament back into the public consciousness is by developing a remake. Hollywood is currently in a long-running phase of funding sequels, spin-offs, and remakes, and Testament could be a worthy subject. Its themes are completely relevant in the modern day, and current social issues could make the film even more effective. Perhaps Costner could even return as a new character. All in all, Testament should be back on viewers' radars. Before he rode horses across wide-open plains in Dances with Wolves, or stood defiantly on a wind-swept baseball diamond in Field of Dreams, Kevin Costner was just a young actor hoping for a break. And one of his earliest forays into Hollywood came in a place no actor would want to find themselves: ground zero of a nuclear apocalypse. It was in a film so chilling, so grounded in terrifying realism, that it left an entire generation shaken, and for a moment, Costner was part of the dread. The year was 1983. Tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union were as taut as a tripwire. The Cold War wasn't just simmering in backrooms and on diplomatic podiums. It was a daily reality seeping into pop culture, classrooms, and homes. People whispered of fallout shelters, air raid sirens, and the terrifying concept of mutually assured destruction. Then came a film that held a mirror up to that fear and dared everyone to look. That film was The Day After. Airing as a made-for-TV movie on ABC, The Day After was a cinematic gut punch that dared to answer a question no one wanted to face. What would really happen if the bombs fell? Not just the mushroom clouds or military maneuvers, but the devastating consequences that would unfold in small towns, suburban neighborhoods, and American hearts. Kevin Costner didn't headline the film. That role belonged to Jason Robards, a veteran actor lending gravitas to the project. But Costner, young and relatively unknown at the time, appeared in a supporting role that echoed with quiet tragedy. He played a soldier, Major Billy McCoy, noble and dutiful, caught in the cascading collapse of a world spiraling into nuclear winter. Though his screen time was limited, Costner's presence was memorable. In a film where chaos, panic, and collapse were the norm, his character carried a flicker of humanity and resolve. He was a man trying to do the right thing while the very idea of right crumbled beneath radioactive dust. Even in that brief role, Costner carried the seeds of the star he would become: stoic, grounded, and unmistakably real. What made the day after so haunting wasn't just the fallout or the death toll. It was the normalcy that preceded it. Set in the heartland of America, Lawrence, Kansas, the film introduced us to teachers, doctors, families, students. Ordinary people with ordinary lives. A college girl debating her future. A farmer worried about crops. A couple planning their wedding. And then the sirens wailed. The film didn't flinch. There were no heroes charging into bunkers or miracle rescues. Instead, there were burns, broken communications, radiation poisoning, starvation. People huddled in basements not for minutes, but for weeks. It was a nightmare stripped of Hollywood gloss, and viewers couldn't look away. More than 100 million people tuned in to watch the day after when it aired on November 20, 1983, an unprecedented audience for a TV movie. Classrooms held special discussions the next day. Churches prayed. Politicians took notice. Even President Ronald Reagan was reportedly deeply disturbed by the film, writing in his diary that it left him feeling depressed and questioning the very tenets of nuclear deterrence. In this sea of devastation, Kevin Costner's role may seem small, but its emotional impact was profound. His character represented a generation of soldiers and citizens swept into a conflict that no one truly understood, fighting not for victory, but for survival. There was something prophetic in his gaze, as if even in his youth, Costner understood the weight of what this film was trying to convey. Of course, Costner would go on to explore other kinds of destruction in later roles. He'd play a postman delivering hope in a post-apocalyptic wasteland, a bodyguard facing human threats, and a survivor in a waterlogged world after the polar ice caps melted. But the day after was different. It was real, unflinching. It wasn't just fiction, it was a warning. Interestingly, Costner has rarely spoken at length about his role in the film. Perhaps because it was early in his career, or maybe because the film itself overshadows everything around it. But to fans of cinema history, that appearance is a reminder that even legends have humble, haunting beginnings. The day after wasn't just a stepping stone for Costner, it was a cultural earthquake. In the weeks that followed its airing, thousands of letters poured into ABC. Families began rethinking emergency plans. Young people asked their parents what radiation sickness meant. The film had achieved something rare. It forced a national conversation. It also reshaped entertainment. The door was opened for more serious explorations of nuclear war and post-apocalyptic survival. Films like Threads and Testament followed with their own bleak visions, but none reached the same audience or cultural impact as The Day After. And tucked within its radioactive shadows was a young man who would go on to define American heroism on the screen. Kevin Costner's later roles often reflected resilience in the face of disaster. Whether facing moral dilemmas on a baseball field, preserving justice in the Old West, or trying to save a drowning world. That thread of survival, of finding light in darkness, perhaps found its origin in that early, terrifying glimpse of nuclear war. There's something strangely poetic about that. That one of the most iconic American actors of his generation began his journey not by saving the world, but by showing us just how easily it could end. And perhaps that's why The Day After still resonates. It wasn't just a warning about bombs or fallout. It was a reminder of fragility, of humanity, and of how, even in the most hopeless of stories, someone like Kevin Costner could still stand tall, even if only for a moment, in the rubble. Let me know if you'd like this rewritten as a blog post, magazine-style article, or turned into a podcast-style script.